Alright guys, welcome back. So after that, all those new glue types, we now have this, and it looks okay, but I still wanted to fine tune it. Like, I like how the well being blown out, but I'm thinking like this is like squeezing too much. Okay, so I also want to change that. Now that's gonna be this attribute here on the hard, right? Here this attribute called constraint iteration. Okay. So I'm gonna give it a little bit more strength, like 30, and let's take a look. So it's harder to break. Okay. I basically bring it back to what I was having before, more or less. So it's like trying to maintain the shape, but it can't because of the pushing happening to it. I think there's one thing I forgot to change back. I think the glue here maybe is like body glue here. Let me check. Let's go back to the car and look at that attribute promotes. I'm using minimum. So on the attribute wrangle here, let's take a look at the different now. So now it looks like this. Go back to the attribute promote. I'm going to say, what if I use maximum? Doesn't do much of a different. Let's look at those parts. Minimum. Now they're green, right? If I change these to maximum, it becomes white. So I want more things to break. Maybe I'm gonna use that minimum thing here, maximum thing here, and see if that's better. And back to the car simulation, and let's rerun the simulation because I don't want the glasses to be all like stays there. I want them to be able to break. Okay, now that feels a bit better. I like how the back part falls down and it breaks itself. I like how the wells are going out. Let's take a look at this little simulation here. A bit too strong here on the constraint iteration. Let me try maybe 15. And also I'm gonna go change the glue strength. Here, it's on the attribute wrangle now, so I'm gonna say, how about the other glue strengths to be like 30? Now I can change them here, but I cannot really see my model, so that's kind of like a pain. So I'm gonna say, let's import. So I'm gonna say dub import, and here I'm gonna tell it to import from the dub network car simulation. And the object to import will be the car, as I renamed it earlier, which is how this guy is named. Let's go back to the car and then change that to fetch geometry from dub network. Now you can see my car sitting right there. If I play the animation, it's not actually moving, but if you keep playing it, you see it's playing that being shattered part and pushed back. The reason being is because it's trying to preserve the worst space positions. Let's check that off, and then you play it. You can see now it goes forward, and the simulation basically copies. This basically now copies the simulation from the dub network. Okay, now because of that, I can add a few attributes on this guy. I'm going to say I want to control that particular value that that's to control the stiffness of this hard constraint. I'm going to call that hard constraint stiffness, or I'm going to move all the controls back to the subnetwork. So let's accept it. Alright, now I have this guy here. I'm going to say this guy, copy reference or copy parameter, and go back to the car simulation. I'm going to say you are now let me delete that and paste relative reference. Okay, you are now controlled by that new attribute I created from the stop input. So now I'm going to change that to maybe 12. As you can see here, if you go to the hard here and click that, you can see it's now 12. Okay, alright. So now I can change everything here in the viewport. Sorry, not in the viewport. In the car geometry, I just need to go dot import and attribute wrangle, these two things, to change out the relative attribute that I can fine tune my simulation. Let's see, 12 is better now. Probably not. I need to be having a little bit more strength. So let's say 16. How about 16? 16. Bending too much. Let's say maybe 25. See if that's better. Right, that's holding together better. I think it's around the range from 25 to 30 kind of deal. 30 is probably too strong. And then let it go all the way to 72, so 3 seconds, and take a look at the result. Okay, let me change the range to 72 so I don't have to wait a lot of time here. Okay. Oh, that change also refreshes the simulation for some reason. Anyway, so let's just make it simulate again. I need to see it in real time so I can feel like if it's good or not. I like the squeezing part. Okay. But I do want the this part, the glass in the front, to break more. I'm gonna say, alright, let's go change the glue, the other glues maybe to 10, so they're really weak, and see if they can look better now. Now they are breaking more, but as you can see, when that is like changed, the glue here has to change too, the hard glue. So I'm gonna say 25 is not enough, 35 maybe. It's always this kind of like trade-off when it comes to simulation. Like one attribute actually affects the other guys, so that you have to maybe go back and forth here and there. So 35 is not strong enough. I'm gonna say 50. How about 50? I guess 50 is still not enough. So maybe higher than that, like 100. So when it doesn't really make that much of a difference, you change the degrade, like how much you change it. I actually like this kind of like bumpy result eventually. It's not bad. Maybe just a little lower than that. 75 maybe. Yeah, I think it's getting there now. I like how everything bends and how it's like bounced back and really like having trouble but still trying to hold together. As the glass, some glass are flying away, some glass are holding there already still. So I'm gonna maybe go back and tweak how the glass behaves eventually. But for now, I'm pretty happy with the bending effect happening. Oops, that's probably bending too much actually when it's playing in real time. Let's go to real time. Yeah, that's kicking too much. Alright, so I'm gonna say, alright, 75 is too much. 60, how about 60? Will it be better? Let's take a look. I don't really like it to, you know, slide away. So I'm gonna say, how about here we're having lesser bounce, like 3. Oops, go back. Right, 3, maybe 3 is better. All right. Okay, that's getting there. I think I'm really getting there now. It has a decent kind of bounce. Maybe it's too bouncy like a spring. Maybe it shouldn't be that much, but still I can feel like that bending part of the metal part, body part of the car is really like bounce around while other parts shatters. Okay, so let me actually do this. I'm gonna go ahead and just do one little change here. The body glue strength to maybe 6, just to give it a little more softness when it collides. And if everything looks good, I'm gonna say cool. Oh, I don't really want it to fall off. Let's see how it turns out to be. Okay, it's stretching out. really trying to hold together, string out and back. That's interesting, kind of like behavior. I kind of like it. But I think there is more thing I can do with that initial like 10, I guess. Like, let's change that to 9. But I don't really want to spend a lot of time and make you look at what I'm doing here. Maybe just a little bit so that you kind of know what I'm thinking. Maybe sometimes like how you should try to approach those things. But still, like different people may have different kind of like requirement. I'm just looking for this kind of like shattering effects with bending body parts. Alright, I'm gonna live with this, and that's gonna be it for this tutorial. Just fine tuning on how everything works, how everything looks like by taking parameters. In the next class, we're gonna do some refinement here. Actually, let me just do that here now. I mean, why not? We still have some time. So I'm gonna say, okay, when it hits here, I like that hit. It goes back down. But how about when it's backing down here, right? I'm gonna do two things. I want to make the strings, the holding strings, this guy, to be lower, and I want the glasses glue to just go really low. Okay. Alright. So let me keyframe this guy. So on frame 31, it's trying to bend out. I'm gonna give it a keyframe by alt clicking it, and a few frames later, when it's really trying to stretch out, maybe I wanted to just keep it in this this kind of shape. I'm gonna alt maybe a few frames earlier. Alt click on it. I'm gonna say now it becomes 5, and alt click. Right, this is really art directing it now after the general simulation that you wanted to be able to control when things breaks, how things breaks, how things stops break. Right, you want to be able to art direct it, and oftentimes if you can art direct things, it's gonna be better than simulated ways, because things are really messy in reality, and you probably don't want it to like, it's still trying to hold back though. Maybe it's because you don't have really that much of a strength on it. Right, I'm gonna say maybe I can change that to 1 here, but I don't think it's gonna do too much. Still, I'm gonna leave it there just in case. That's one thing. And here, just want to show you, of course I can keyframe on the glue here right away, right? Actually here, I can key the body glue strings, other glue strings here too. But I can also show you that there's another way inside of the dot network that I can just tell it to shatter. So inside of the dot network, I'm gonna find that constraint network. I'm gonna drag out. Let's say let's create a sub network, sub solver actually. I don't know why I didn't remember that, but sub solver, just like the one we did here. I'm gonna say inside of the sub solver, I'm gonna check the time, but I don't want to do any geometry because there is basically no geometry here. We're using that constraint thing, right? Constraint network. So that's what that constraint network is. So let me go there, and let's actually also play some frame so we can look at the timing. At this point, it's when it's actually hitting a ground really hard again, frame 40. Let me turn off the simulation here. It's not updating here now. I'll go into the sub solver and look at the things from this guy. And what I'm looking for here is in the actually it doesn't have anything. Let's take a look at here. I can hold down my middle mouse button here and take a look at those things. Okay. So one of the things I want you to be noticed is that there is a primitive group called broken. Now we never created that group. This group is the group you can tell it to be in if you want it to break the constraint or the glue. So I'm going to say on frame 38, attribute Rango here. On frame 38, so if at frame will be equals to 38, double equal. If it's frame 38, I'm going to say, alright, if you also is if your part is also the glue. Oh, actually, let's say if you are because the part is body and stuff, let's see what else I can look for. Whoops, let me disable that. So we have constraint name here, right? If the constraint name is glue, another if, or here I can maybe just say and basically means and at constraint name equals glue. So you're a glue constraint. Let's make it just make it break it by making the group change to the broken group. Alright, I'm going to say at group broken as this group right here, will be equals to 1, and run it. What does it say? Oh, I need to put in an as to tell it. Okay, read that as a constraint name thing. Okay, now as you can see, the constraint name, if I switch that to maybe the, if I can find the glue ones, right? Their broken is now 1 because I tell them to. Okay, so let's go back to the simulation and take a look. So what should happen now is that when I simulate to frame, what's that number again? 30 something, right? Let's just double check. 38. So on frame 38, suddenly all the glue will break. Let's take a look. Oh, sorry, I disabled the simulation. That little brain is how you disable the simulation if you wanted to do a lot of changes without having to update. So now all the glasses are holding together pretty nicely, and then suddenly at that 38, when it hits the ground again, that strong hit, that's when I am going to just make them break. Oops, let me stop that. They're not breaking. Let me go ahead and check something here. Maybe I was doing something wrong on the context. I'm doing that on the point context. It should be on the primitive because that's, that's primitive thing. And also let me go create the output and go back and try it again. And this time it should basically breaking all the glasses when it hits ground again on frame 38. Whoops, go back to frame 1. Let's look at its simulation here now. So what I would expect is that at that instant this part hits the ground again, I want those things to also just shatter into pieces. Right now you can see they directly just shatters out because I tell them to do so. So you can see this is also art direct, right? I'm telling them what to do because I think that looks better. Now is it realistic? Maybe not, but who cares if it's realistic? What I want is that the eye-pleasing result, right? The hit should feel strong, and that's why I make those guys all shattered out. Right? You can see now they just, at that instance, it just shatters. Okay. So there are a lot of other things you can do. I don't want to go over like a lot of things. I want to just show you something, right? Here's something that is what is possible. And again, Houdini is this very flexible software that you can tell it whatever you want it to do. So a lot of times it's like your imagination to design and create and came up with what you want to do with it. It's not like you memorize everything I did here. That's the last thing I want you to do. Don't remember everything I showed you here, but remember the concepts and try to be creative when you're creating your own simulation. Okay? Alright, that's gonna be it for this tutorial.